Hello everyone, my name is Nilakshi Mate. Today we are seeing forecasting methods in part 3. So, the remaining methods I will teach you in this lecture. Now, we will take a quick overlook of the previous lecture. In previous lecture, we start with the judgmental forecasting, which is the type of a qualitative forecast method. So, in this method, there are several types. Those are executive opinions, sales force opinions, consumer surveys, outside opinion, and Delphi methods. In Delphi methods, there are two ways: opinion of managers and staff, and second one, achieve a forecast. So, in executive opinions, I will tell you in short. We take a opinion from a higher or a perfectionist or a particular person from the forecast department, and from that input we take to forecast our planning. In Salesforce opinion, we arrange a team. Those peoples are going into the market and take a survey from the market for a particular product requirement, and on that basis they decide the demand of that particular product, and by that demand we take for the forecasting purpose in our company. In consumer survey, we go towards the distributors and other level of consumers. In that level, we go towards them and ask to them about our particular product and that demand of that product. According to their opinion, we plan our forecast our forecast in our company. In outside opinion, we take a opinion from a consultancies, from a executives, and from other peoples. Those are very good in forecasting. Last one is Delphi method. In this method, we take a opinion from our own company staff, means from our higher authority and other staff. Those are in team of our forecasting planning. Now moving forward, we take a look of time series forecast. In this time series forecast, we check out for the various variations occurs in the demand of the forecast. So in that variations, we took a each variation one by one, and I will explain these all variations one by one with the help of a graph which is plot demand against a time. So what is meant by trend? Trend is a long term movement in a data. So that long term movement, it will be increasing in the demand or it will be decreasing in the trend. So as shown in the figure, we see that the increasing demand take a straight line in the increasing direction towards right, and the in the decreasing trend we saw that at the first point the trend is at higher side, and as the time passes the trend will be decreases. This is the first type of time series forecast. Another one is seasonality. It is a short term regulation variation in data which is depend upon the season. So this season means, as we know, there are festival seasons, there are rainy seasons, there are winter seasons. So the products are as per that season, the manufacturers are made, and the demand is higher at that time of a season. So the seasonal variation is in the wavy nature as shown in this graph. Next time series variation is cycle. Wave like variation of more than 1 year's duration is known as cyclic variation, as shown in this fourth graph. This is a cyclic variation which concluded for the 1 year trend. Another one is irregular variation caused by the unusual circumstances. Unusual circumstances means, dear student, please note that when there unusually comes obstacles in our demands or in our regular consumer flow, such as earthquakes, flood, and in our recently example is in our hand, that is the lockdown due to the COVID-19. Last one is the random variation caused by the chances. So these are the random variation graph comes. This type of forecast comes under a quantitative forecasting. So after that we saw the time series model. In this model we take a overlook of each and every model shortly. Now in this lecture we will explain all these models in detail with the help of example. So first one is the Navy model, which is used for the last period actual value as a forecast, means the last period value taken as a forecast value for our next period. In simple mean average method, there is a one model which known as a average model, and it again divided into three types. One is simple mean, another one is simple moving average, third one is a weighted moving average, and the last one is the exponential smoothing. In simple mean average uses an average of all past data as a forecast, means for further or future forecasting we take a average of all past data. In simple moving average uses an average of specified number of the most recent observations, with each observations receiving the same emphasis or weight. Third one, weighted moving average. Use an average of a specified number of the most recent observations, means we take some recent observations for a specified numbers and take that average, and the each observations receiving it's giving a different weight or emphasis. Last one is the exponential smoothing, a weighted average procedure with the weights declining exponentially as a data become older. Okay, now we start with the simple average method. So dear student, as I told you, most of the quantitative techniques calculate demand forecast as an average from the past demand. So there are some important techniques as I told you before. First we see simple average method. In simple average method, the demands occurring in all previous time periods is taken as a demand forecast for the next time period. So we take one example. A XYZ television supplier found a demand of 200 sets in July. In August, 225 sets, and in September he having a demand of 245 sets. So find the demand forecast for the month of October using simple average method. So in this method, the average demand for the month of October is find out by taking average of past 3 months. So we take summation of the demands from the past 3 months and take divided by a 3, because we take a 3 months of demands. So for taking average we are dividing by 3. So we get the approximate value is 224 units. Now we see next method. Dear student, get my point? In simple average method, we take a average of all past data for assigning a forecast for the next time period. Okay. Now in simple moving average method, in this method the average of the demands from a several of the most recent period is taken as the demand forecast for the next time periods. Once again I tell you, the average of the demands from the several of the most recent period is taken as the demand forecast for the next time period. So, the number of past period to be used in calculations is selected in the beginning and is kept constant, such as 3 period moving average. So, for better understanding, we take one example. A XYZ refrigerator supplier has experienced the following demand for refrigerator during past 5 months. So, one by one I tell you. In February, he having a 20 numbers of refrigerator supply. In March, he have a supply of 30 refrigerators. In April, it is 40. In May, it is 60. In June, it is 45. So we have to find out the forecast for the month of the July using 5 period moving average and 3 period moving average using simple moving average method. So we solve this example. First we have to find out forecast for the month of July using 5 period moving average. In this example we have a two values or two period average to find out the value of the forecast. So we use the formula is MA suffix n is equal to summation of DI means demands divided by n means the period average. So for 5 period average n is 5. So we take all 5 months summation and divided by 5. Then our forecast value become 29 units. And for 3 period average we take a n is equal to 3. So at that time we take a summation of last 3 periods means last 3 demands April, May and June. All these demands from the last 3 months we take a summation of that and divided by 3. So we can get the output for the forecasting of next period. So we have to know about the simple average method and the simple moving average method difference. So for that purpose I tell you in detail the difference between the simple average method and simple moving average method. So first you have to understand what is meant by a moving average. So a moving average forecast is obtained by averaging the data points over a desired number of past period. This number usually encompasses 1 year in order to smooth out a seasonal variations. The smoothing results because high and low, so values during a year trend to be cancelled out. Means the seasonal variations are always having a up downs, so that trend will be cancelled out to smoothing out our forecasting. Extending the moving average to include more period increases the smoothing effect but decreases the sensitivity of forecast to more recent data. So in moving average is distinguished from a simple average by a requirement for consecutive calculations. Each average moves forward in time to include a more recent observations while dropping the oldest point. Means in short, if we having a 12-month data but we required a forecasting with the help of 5 period average, at that time we are cancel out first 7 months data and take only recent 5 months demand value for the further forecasting. But in simple average we have to take all month demand and then take a average of that summation value, and the value comes is the forecast for the next time period. This is the main difference between simple average and simple moving average method. A moving average calculated for a number of the most recent data observations, so you will be get the good forecast value for the next period. If there is a data pattern is relatively constant, a seasonal index reference to the moving average improves the forecast. An index value is calculated by dividing the actual demand by the centered moving average for that period. So a more reliable index is obtained by averaging several index values for common time period. So the forecast is the product of the most recent centered moving average for a period and the index value for that period because of the seasonal variation. Okay, now moving forward, we going forward for the weighted moving average method. So in this method, unequal weights are assigned to the past demand while calculating simple moving average as a demand forecast for the next time period. Usually most recent data is assigned the highest weight factor. Okay, so this is also I will explain with the help of example. So what is the example is, the manager of a restaurant wants to make decision on inventory and overall cost. He want to forecast demand for some of the items based on weighted moving average method. For the past 3 months he experienced a demand for pizzas as follows. So which are the demands? In October he having a demand of 400 nos, in November 480 nos, and in December it is 550. So we have to find out the month of January demand by assuming suitable weights to demands. So we are solving this example by use of formula is summation with respect to n Ci into Di, where Ci is assumed as a weights for periods and Di is a demands for a periods. So let's assume C1 is equal to 0.25, C2 is equal to 0.3 and C3 is equal to 0.5. So our equation becomes C1 into D1 plus C2 into D2 plus C3 into D3. So the calculation comes is 0.25 into 400 plus 0.3 into 480 plus 0.5 into 550. The values are 100 for the 0.25 into 400 is equal to 100 plus 0.3 into 480 is 144 and 0.5 into 550 is 275. So the addition of all these three comes the answer, which is 519 units. So the demand for the month of January by use of weight moving average method is 519 units. Now we go for the next method, which is exponential smoothing method. In this method, weights are assigned in exponential order. So the weights decreases the exponentially from the most recent demand data to older demand data. So I will explain with the help of example, and the example is one of the two-wheeler manufacturing company experience irregular but usually increasing demand for three products. The demand was found to be 420 bikes for June and 440 bikes for July. They use a forecasting method which takes average of past year to forecast future demand. Using the simple average method, demand forecast for June is found as a 320 bikes, and use a smoothing coefficient is 0.7 to weight the recent demand most heavily and find the demand forecast for August. So we use the formula which is Ft is equal to alpha into d t minus 1 plus in bracket 1 minus 1 minus alpha into Ft minus 1, where alpha is smoothing coefficient which is given as a 0.7. dt minus 1 is a actual demand for recent period. So which is the actual demand for recent period is 420 bikes for June, and Ft minus 1 is demand forecast for recent period which is 320, which is calculated by use of simple average method for the June, and Ft is a forecast for next period demand. So for July the equation becomes 0.7 into 420 plus 1 minus 0.7 into 320, which comes out 294 plus 96, and your forecasting value is 390 units. And for August we take same with the help of actual demand for recent period will be change here, which is 440 bikes, which is already given in the example. So the values in the equation we put, those are 0.7 into 440 plus 1 minus 0.7 into 390. The value comes by our older equation we put in this value. So the answer is 425 units. So our demand for the forecast of August is 425 units. Okay student, you get my points. Now moving forward, here I have to explain a Delphi methods which comes under a qualitative forecasting method, which we have already seen in judgmental forecasting. So I quickly explain here Delphi method. Delphi method is a qualitative forecasting method which developed at the Rand Corporation, which solicits and collates opinions from experts to arrive at reliable consensus. A series of questionnaires is sent to a panel composed of experts from the selected technological specialties. Each questionnaire solicits written opinions about the specific subjects and requests supporting reasons for the opinions. So these reasons are summarized in each iteration and written for the inspection by whole panel. Through this series of exchange arguments and transfer of knowledge, a prediction is gradually forged. So advocates of Delphi methods claim that the anonymity of written responses from the expert panel preserves the desirable features of a committee of specialists while reducing the bandwagon and dominant personality effects that group opinions. Delphi forecasts may stretch several decades into the future. This is the actual Delphi method. Okay, students. Now